Good afternoon, and thanks everybody for attending this great session. It's a great honor to be here. I'm pinch hitting for the great Akshay Khanna, who was supposed to moderate from Avasant, and he's tied up on a personal matter back in India. So they turned to me to pinch hit, and what an honor. I'm humbled to be with this great group of people. I'm going to let them introduce themselves in a moment, and we'll jump right into our topics. I'm Walter, or Wally Yosefat, the former CIO of Capri Holdings, which is Michael Kors, Jimmy Choo, and Versace, and a bunch of other CIO-ships before that. I'm also an Avasant Distinguished Fellow, and again, my honor to moderate the great panel. I'm going to turn to Mabby, and Mabby, ping-pong it over to Max and to Roger.
Would be happy to. Hey, everybody. Mabby Amui. I'm the head of data, AI, and analytics at Norfolk Southern. For those of you who might not be familiar with Norfolk Southern, we are one of the largest railroad companies in the United States. We ship pretty much everything from raw material to finished products. So think of steel, lumber, all the way to UPS packages, BMWs, even electronic warfare and Department of Defense equipment. We are spanning 22 states on the east of the United States, about 28,000 miles of track that is owned and maintained by us. It's not by Department of Transportation, unlike the myths that are out there. We run about 300 to 350 trains a day, and each train has hundreds of rail cars. So you can think about the complexities of this network and the need for data, AI, and automation to be able to continue to optimize and serve our customers, which is basically the US economy.
Great. Max?
All right. Hi, everyone. I know we are probably one of the last few between you and drinks, so we'll make it exciting. CIO here at Avnet. Avnet, for those of you, well, I was looking at the composition of the room, and I'm hoping that most of you actually recognize the company's name, Avnet. We are a 100-plus-year-old company focusing on technology distributions as well as technology solutions. We focus on products like semiconductor and various electronic components, and we always pride ourselves for being able to onboard any customers at the point of inceptions to design all the way to new product introductions, supply chain services, and also end-of-life management. As you can imagine, if you think about the tariff situations that we're in right now, at the end of the day, as companies like Avnet, who is helping our customers, both upstreams and downstream, navigate where the products come from and where the products ultimately go. That will help avoid unnecessary surcharge on top of everything that goes from the upstream over the downstream. But on top of that, more and more companies that we partner with are looking for people who will be able to help take over the entire supply chain, and we're beginning to do a lot more of that with OEM customers that we work with closely at a global level. We can talk more about the importance of data, the importance of AI, and how it's actually shaping this whole industry, but I'll leave it at that. Roger?
Thank you, Max, and lovely to be with all of you today. I am Chief Executive Officer of Hitachi Digital Services. Hitachi is a company that started over 100 years ago with the development of a 5-horsepower engine in a remote Japanese location, and has turned into one of the majors that has really industrialized the world as we know it today, together with companies like GE, Siemens, and others. I'm responsible for a division within Hitachi that is a digital engineering and a system integration division. So we build, integrate, and operate some of the world's most complex systems, both in asset-heavy and asset-light industries.
Great. I've had the opportunity to partner with Max on an advisory board, so we knew each other from before. And Mabby's background and Roger's background and the involvement with GE. I was a former CIO of aircraft engines. And so this was just a wonderful group to be associated with. and spend time with. And I want to jump in, building off of what we heard before from Todd when he was talking about electrical and the grid and the importance of data. And so I'm going to turn to Max first because I know he's built a wonderful foundational piece that powers AI, and I don't want you to go into all the details of building that in that foundation, but to use that to then describe and share with all of you the great things they're doing in AI, the results, and how they're leveraging it, so you can take away those great examples. So with that in mind, Max, tell us about building off of that data journey, what you've been able to do and deliver Avnet internally and for customers.
Yeah, thanks, Wally. And to that point, right, while this morning we talk a lot about transformations, we talk about disruptions, we talk about how AI is here to stay, and it's really here to fuel the business changes for years to come, right? This is not something that is going to really happen at the snap of a finger. We were fortunate enough because we started our journey to move away from, let's call it legacy architecture and monolithic environment that we were very, very focused on building upon our legacy ERP systems that we installed some 30 years ago and took a lot of pride in it. When cloud and data platforms, etc., came about, we thought that, okay, let's just go put a data platform on top of, in the cloud, on top of everything that we have. That was 7, 8 years ago. And what we quickly realized is that the scalability is just not there. We were able to do the replication, we were able to do certain things there. We started creating this Frankenstein out of the interfaces that we have with our legacy ERP systems. At that point, and that is probably 2019, around that time, or 2020, we decided to pivot completely. We decided to blow up our legacy environment and architecture and rebuild this cloud-based, cloud-native environment and landscape with microservices and data platform and API connectivities and front-end interfaces from scratch, right? That really helped us with everything that we do from there on, because we're not only able to leverage various capabilities in the cloud, right? Be it AI ML or data lake and leveraging all kind of capabilities that is available that we didn't have before in the monolithic environment. Fast forward came generative AI about 2 years ago, well, 2.5 years ago now, with ChatGPT announcing their first foray into the market, right? Where we were lucky enough to be able to get our hands on it in partnership with Microsoft through their Azure OpenAI. But what we realized very quickly is that because of the architecture that we put together, because of the data platform that we have built up, because of all the different models that we have the ability to convert many of those things to an AI-ready data set that powers downstream data consumption. Just like everyone else that is here who has been dabbling into that, we were able to build use cases very quickly. We were able to enable to drive this process changes with AI in mind, and we were able to start looking at how we then transform our business to focus on AI-centric type of business model, and I'll tell you why afterwards. But really, the whole thing went back to because of the decision we made 7, 8 years ago when we decided to move away, build a complete cloud-native platform, creating that data foundations. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't be able to do many of the things that we are doing right now.
That's
awesome.
great.
I
Mabby,
want to actually build on, you mentioned the word transform, and I think that's really powerful. That's what resonated with me this morning when, during the keynote, it was mentioned that it's not about automation, it's about completely transforming. And I always talk about this, as a railroad, we have been around for 2 centuries, and I really mean it. 2 centuries is as long as we've been around, and a lot of our processes haven't changed over the years. For decades, for example, the train inspection process has been done the same way. And I want to tell you guys the story about how we completely transformed, fundamentally changed the way we inspect our trains. So on a very high level, every train that comes to a major sorting facility, or we call it a yard, or departs today, needs to get inspected. And as I mentioned, for decades, the inspection process has been 2 people, you and I, on each side of a train. We walk along this train and visually look at every single rail car and assess them for somewhere around 300 plus defects. Now, as you know, the trains are quite long. We have trains that are 2 or 3 miles long on average. It takes 2 hours for us to walk and for us to inspect this train. It is very cumbersome, it is very time consuming, and then you layer in all the complexities that can go on in the field with respect to adverse weather conditions, whether it's heavy fog, low visibility, I mean, you name it. And about a few years ago, what we did at Norfolk Southern, we created these mini inspection portals, or a tunnel. It's basically like a 20-foot tunnel that is equipped with high-speed cameras. We have 38 high-speed cameras along with the stadium lighting. And as the train goes through this tunnel is able to sense the presence of a train, and the cameras will come on, and they start imaging every single rail car. On average, we take about 1,000 pictures of every single rail car. And we equip this with 60-plus AI algorithms that are literally doing what humans were doing. They're looking for the same type of defects that the humans are looking for. But I want to tell you something. The results have been phenomenal. Just since the inception of this program, we found 100,000 plus, that is 100K defects that were missed by humans but found by this technology. And among those, just last year, we had 90 cases where the defects were so severe that we had to stop the train, dispatch mechanical forces to that location, fix the problem before we could let that train go. Because in the railroad industry, if you're familiar with us, we don't gamble with safety. Safety underpins everything. And in all these cases, literally a train was going through a tunnel, business as usual. They didn't even have to slow down the train. And then the AI just came on, and then within a matter of minutes, we sent actionable results back to the back office where they coordinated, stopped that train, fixed the issue, and let that train go. And you can kind of think about, all the benefits and everything that comes with technology, but I would really want to focus on one thing, how fundamentally an industry that's been doing this for decades and has been around for 2 centuries is reimagining the way that they inspect trains. And that's just one of the many things that we're doing with AI that is completely reimagining how we operate as a business.
That's fantastic. And, it's a great build. Roger, we talked a little bit about how long Hitachi's been in business, and Japan, and the way it grew up. So, kind of like Mabby, you're head of a division, right, of a company that is leveraged maybe either data or technology. Talk about how you've used it to help transform and take Hitachi to new levels.
Well, I think, listen, a couple of great examples that we just heard, and particularly the one on the trains that we were just discussing. The reason why that's now possible, and we haven't talked a lot about this today, is just how far the visual technology has gone. The fact that we can use these cameras to look at what's going on at completely different resolution rate, completely different speeds than we have been able to in the past. And what's really enabling this entire world when we talk about IT/OT is just how much more digital the physical world is becoming. I mean, when you think about a train, to use my colleague's example, I mean, you rewind the clock, a train was what, 4 walls, 4 wheels, a box, and an engine, right? That's what was chugging down the tracks. Today, a train has over 40,000 sensors in it, and it's actually a great use case also for AI on the edge, because what's happening is the train is charging down the tracks. It's reading from those 40,000 sensors, but in the past it couldn't do anything with it, meaning it would read it, download it to a computer on the train, a big hard drive, then guys in black sunglasses would go and retrieve essentially that black box, bring it to a central location. Now you have an AI on the edge. You have the NVIDIA chip in case of Hitachi trains that's running on those trains, and it's reading the data right off the edge and processing it real time. So instead of once in 2 weeks, you're processing it in milliseconds. So what has happened is, in case of Hitachi, which also has a rolling stock division, we oftentimes know more about the condition of the rail than the actual company that owns the rail, because our train is reading that data real time and processing it using AI.
Yeah, I think if I may jump in, right? Both my colleagues here talk about the physical aspect and how AI is really transforming this whole industry and how we are really accelerating the way that we work, etc. Right? Interestingly, if you look at Avnet as a distribution company, right? A lot of people think of us as we are just moving boxes. However, if I were to look closer, we don't own the fleet. We don't own any manufacturing. We essentially orchestrate the entire supply chain. And I truly believe that in the next 5 years, distribution could potentially be disrupted and displaced, and the one that is going to be disrupting distribution would probably not be one of our traditional competitors, because we are, at the end of the day, orchestrating data, because we figure out where the goods comes from, where it's going, what needs to happen, what is the right price, what is the alternative. All these are really management and manipulations of data to be able to get us to the right place. So the way that the company is looking at it right now is to imagine, if we all believe, and we agreed at the executive level, we agreed that we will see a displacement and a disruption of the industry in the next 5 years. And if we truly think that, how can Avnet not be the one that is displaced, but is really the one that is disrupting and displacing, right? And this is where the entire transformations, Brian talked about thinking big enough. This is our opportunity to really be thinking big enough to rethink what a distribution industry would look like. And I always liked to use the example of digital learning, right? Historically, when you want private tutoring, etc., you have a platform, you get a matching of private tutor to the students. I have a high schooler, so I know this from my personal experience. And you buy a block of hours, then you set up a Zoom call and you go for private tutoring. Now, what happens is, with generative AI, the need for private tutor has diminished to a large extent. The platform itself can have digital tutor, which is AI, to allow students to ask any question based on the grade that they are in, which type of question, exams that they are sitting for, the subjects, etc., and it can be available to you at any time of the day, right? The platform increases their value by creating this opportunity through AI. Unfortunately, the private tutors themselves get displaced or figure out a way to survive in different capacity. Like one example that the IKEA is example, right? Moving away from being a customer service agent and offering new business line in advising interior design, right? So that is the kind of conversation that we are having internally right now to look at what that looks like and really trying to think big from our sense, because we truly believe that AI is the one that is going to be disrupt and displace the distribution industry.
Great, great. You know, I want to bring the conversation about making all these great things happen back to not AI, but human talent to drive all this AI innovation and the great results that you guys have talked about. Roger, I want to start with you. Talk about AI talent, availability, challenges, growing, developing, retaining, right? To be able to take what you want to do in your different companies and in the industries. How are you? What are you seeing, and how are you facing that that quote unquote new war for talent?
Well, you know, it's a tricky question. What is AI talent, right? So I work with, you know, I'm a provider, you know, on the stage, and we work with a lot of customers. They say AI talent, and what do they mean, right? I think when I think about AI talent, what I'm really thinking about is a couple things. One is somebody who uses AI in their daily engineering effort. Again, I'm an engineering company, so I'm going to take it from an engineering point of view. But this is not somebody who's versed in a particular technology today at 5 o'clock in the evening, because that market is so fragmented and changing so quickly. But a basic interview question is going to be, hey, what have you done, and how did you do it? And part of that answer better be, this is what I leverage in terms of AI technologies to execute my job, because to me it's the same as trying to understand 10 years ago where somebody really knows Java, right? The other thing I would say is, I think one part that is not talked enough, that I think is absolutely paramount in executing enterprise AI, is domain. We don't talk enough about domain. When we use examples, back in the rail industry that I have used, and I'm sure my colleagues, would say the same thing, to do what they had done within their own organizations, they needed people who really understood that business, right? And that includes, people who have worked there, that includes mathematicians, that includes physics majors and PhDs, that includes a lot of hardcore talent and people who understand the domain. Because without that, we're not going to have this tech reinvention of something that we don't fully understand.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot agree with you enough on this topic. I mean, a lot of companies that I've seen, they took this approach of, hey, you have this data science team or AI team, give them a use case, give them data, let them work in silos, and guess what? They come back with solutions that never get adopted by the business. And a huge disconnect between what the business wants even and the outcome that they achieve, because they never even understood the domain, they didn't understand the data. So one of the things that I want to also double down is that you can't have AI talent in silos anymore. It's an AI talent that knows the business or understands the business. And you need to have them sit with the business, work along with them, understand what's under the hood from the AI perspective, but also have that business domain knowledge to be able to solve the problems very effectively. And I think one of the reasons that we succeeded at Norfolk Southern with respect to our AI program was that we had this collaboration from day one. Our data scientists never, ever sit in their silo, try to throw auto ML or all these automated machine learning models at these problems, because we know that it's not going to work.
Yeah, and I think the way that we're addressing this is two-pronged, right? First of all, we truly believe that everyone needs to know and understand how to use AI. In fact, generative AI has actually made AI more accessible to probably everyone who is willing to learn across the organizations. And we have made some experiments or test cases where we have people who don't know data science at all, give them the tool, show them the instructions, and allow them to be able to create analysis that typically would a data scientist had to do previously. So that educations, that opening the aperture of the organizations to be able to consume AI is one thing. The other thing that we have done is that we recognize the fact that AI as a augmentations to what the employees are doing, what the team is doing, is only the first step to a long journey. Because that helps them do the things that they do faster. They are able to accelerate the ability to quote, to improve the quality of the quote that they send to customers, et cetera, et cetera. Great. The next step is really identifying, here are 4 or 5 differentiating end-to-end processes, end-to-end domain area. Right? We talked about domain area earlier, that we want to transform. And what we do is that we have these people come together, this subject matter expert comes together and say, start from a blank sheet of paper. Imagine if we were to make these 4 domain areas completely autonomous. What would it look like in your mind? Based on leveraging their experience, leveraging the IP that they have in their head, leveraging everything that they have been doing the last 10, 20 years, day in, day out, right? And once that is done, then have themselves put themselves into areas that they feel they can add most value. So all of a sudden, AI or digital employees now becomes co-workers of this team members that we have, and they feel, the ownership of making this work because they have a part in designing this. And this is what we are very excited about to see the result. It's just recently being launched with one of the 4 key domain areas, and we're seeing some early success, and now we're taking it to the other areas that we feel is going to change the way that we work, the way that the employee works. So that's how I see talent and AI comes hand in hand. But don't forget, another thing is that is not too far-fetched to imagine is that AI being a manager at some point in time. And this is probably going to happen sooner than all of us expect. Working for an AI. And all of you are doing it probably without realizing or knowing about it. And if you want the answer, I'll share with you over dinner later.
That's great. It's amazing how quickly a few minutes of time together goes. So with a couple of thoughts in mind from what you guys talked about, you talked about what resonates for me as 3 Ds, right? That digital versus physical in the train perspective, the data and the importance of data, and then in talent, the importance of domain, right? These 3 Ds got us there, right, or are getting us there. In the last 2 minutes that we have, and we'll do rapid fire, we'll start with you, Mabby, and work the way down the line. Take 30 seconds, a minute, just to be able to share with us the next 12 to 36 months. Avasant always likes to push the envelope of what's it going to look like in the future. Great results now, where are we going? 30 seconds, give us your 12 to 36 month prediction.
I would say this area is like, advancing so rapidly that whatever I say is going to be probably wrong anyways. But what I'm hoping, and I'm answering it with a caveat, what I'm hoping is that the regulations change to keep up with the advancements in AI. I mean, I was reading that Waymo was, had 55 million miles with only 200 accidents. And we have 6 million accidents a year in the United States, yet Waymo cannot operate in a lot of states. So we are dealing with same challenges with regulations, and my hope, and I cross my finger, that regulations can keep up with the advancements in AI.
That's great. Roger, why don't you do, and then Max, you close it.
Hey, out of the 3 Ds, the one thing I'm fairly certain about is the data D is still going to suck, right? I think we had bad data for decades. I think we will still have bad data a decade from now, and waiting until data is perfect, I think, is a best way to shut down any AI innovation. So on the positive side, I think the agentic AI will move from cost reduction type of scenarios and move more towards revenue generation scenarios. I think we're going to talk less about cutting finance and accounting, which for some reason is people's always favorite area to start with cutting first. And I think we're going to focus more on revenue generating agentic AI.
Great.
Yeah, I think, to a lot of us, when we first get started, right, the future looks very daunting. We might not realize, know where to start. But unless we get started, there's no way we can actually move forward from there. So take that first step. Partner with many partners that you see sitting in this room here. We work with many of the folks here as well. And this is where got us this far, right? And in the coming 36 months, think of it this way, your business is potentially going to be disrupted, and it's not going to be disrupted by the usual suspect of competitions that you know. It's probably going to get a lot of different players into the business that never even seen before. So if you don't do anything about it, someone will do it on you.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Well, we're out of time, and we could talk for hours, days, examples. I would encourage each of you to find these gentlemen at breaks, at dinners. There's such great stories, such great examples to be able to share, blowing up the data model, changing the way decades-old inspections of trains, turning around a company, a traditional in the Japanese way of being able to then partner with others, right? As you said, Roger, you know more perhaps about with the data about than the companies that you provided to do. Suck all the examples out of them because they are all three doing wonderful, great things. And again, I'm humbled to be able to spend some time ping-ponging questions back and forth. And thank you very much for being here.